The Jackal Spoke, A Tale of Ancient Egypt, by Alex Wynne Ashwood. The temple of Anubis woke to murmurs that sounded like wind through stone. A single cry had broken the silence of dawn. The golden statuette of the god had vanished from the inner chamber. Priests whispered, servants trembled, and in the courtyard, torches still smoked from the night watch. The high priest arrived running, his linen robe slightly askew, sandals half fastened, clumsy, but determined to look in control. At the foot of the black granite jackal statue, the old priestess spoke with the calm of someone who believes herself beyond suspicion. She said she had seen 3 figures enter the temple after midnight. Nothing more. Her linen shoulder drape, fine and ceremonial, caught the first pale light like a faint omen. The high priest straightened his robe, cleared his throat, and ordered the suspects to be summoned. Justice, or something close to it, would have to be done. The servant waited in the shadow of a column, hands clenched tight around the rim of her water jar. Her linen shift was damp at the hem, not from river work, the high priest thought, but from sweat that comes with fear. She was young, quick-eyed, and trying far too hard to appear calm. The morning still smelled of smoke and dew. He asked her where she had been during the night watch. Her story came out too smooth, like a reed polished by the current. She claimed she was fetching water at the courtyard well, heard nothing, saw nothing. Yet her eyes kept drifting toward the priest's quarters, a glance that told more than any word. The high priest tugged awkwardly at his collar, acutely aware of the silence pressing down on them. The stolen jackal's absence seemed to fill the temple like smoke. The priest arrived without being summoned, robes perfectly arranged, hair neatly oiled, sandals straight. The high priest noticed the effort. Only the guilty polish themselves like that at dawn. The courtyard was quieter now. The whispers moved deeper into the temple like smoke through cracks. The priest spoke quickly, smoothly, as if the words had been rehearsed in the dark. He claimed he had been praying alone in the sanctuary, keeping vigil as was his duty, but his hands betrayed him, trembling ever so slightly, fingers curling against the edge of his robe. He didn't look at the high priest. He looked at the far end of the colonnade where the servant had passed earlier. The high priest shifted his weight awkwardly, robe bunching at the waist, and asked no questions about prayer. He already understood what kind of night this man had lived. The guard was the only one who didn't try to look innocent. He leaned on his spear like a man tired of long nights, shoulders broad, gaze steady. The high priest found him at the main gate, where the first light was striking the sandstone walls. It should have been a comforting sight, but the silence here was heavier than inside. The guard said he had seen nothing. His voice carried the weight of someone used to giving orders, not answering them. But there was something in the way he tightened his grip on the shaft of his spear, a small pulse of unease beneath the armor. The high priest shifted his weight, nearly tripping over the uneven stone threshold. He pretended not to notice. A clumsy priest shouldn't look like one when a thief walks free. By midday, the temple had grown silent, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The high priest walked the empty corridors alone. Every brazier had burnt down to ash, and the last of the incense curled faintly against the ceiling. He had interrogated them all, pressed every word, examined every footprint in the sand, and found nothing. No broken seal, no mark on the door, not even the soft scrape of a sandal. He stopped at the threshold of the inner chamber, staring at the empty pedestal where the golden Anubis had stood. Light shafted down from the roof opening, catching the dust in a pale golden column. He tugged at his robe unconsciously, as if that small, fidgeting gesture might help him think. From a corner of the courtyard, the old priestess watched him in silence, her linen drape catching the light again like a whisper of guilt he wasn't yet ready to hear. When the sun reached its highest point, the high priest gave up chasing shadows. The suspects had been questioned, the footprints measured, the doors checked again and again. Still nothing. Only silence answered back. So he did the only thing that was left to do. He walked into the inner chamber, knelt on the cold floor, and summoned Anubis. The air grew heavier with each line of the chant. The smell of black resin and myrrh filled the sanctuary, thick and sweet, curling through the roof opening. Torches sputtered as though afraid. The last note of his voice lingered against the stone, like a blade dragged across granite. He felt sweat gather at the back of his neck, and for the first time since dawn, he stopped tugging at his rope. Something was coming. The torches trembled first, not with wind, but with something older. A pressure that crept into the room like cold water through a crack. The smoke, which had risen in loose coils, suddenly straightened, pulling upward toward the opening in the roof. The high priest's heart skipped a beat. He pressed his palms together, lowering his head. He had summoned a god, and the god had answered. The shadow emerged on the far wall, tall and silent. Long ears and Jackal's muzzle outlined in smoke and flame. Then he was there. Anubis, black and gold, standing on the far side of the pedestal where the statuette should have been. His eyes were embers in the half-dark. He did not speak. He didn't need to. Slowly he raised one hand, and from his palm hung the priestess's linen shoulder drape, the golden edge glinting in the flicker of the torches. The high priest felt his stomach tighten. It wasn't the servant. It wasn't the guard. Not the young priest either. It had been her all along. The calm voice at dawn, the measured accusation, the easy confidence. She had hidden behind it like a wall. Anubis tilted his jackal head slightly, as if to say, "The gods do not play at justice." And then, without a word, he let the drape fall at the base of the empty pedestal. They gathered in the courtyard again, but the air had changed. The torches burned lower, the sky blazed white, and the linen drape lay at the high priest's feet. No one spoke. Even the guard, who had barked answers earlier, stood silent with his spear upright. The servant lowered her gaze. The young priest folded his hands. Only the old priestess kept her chin high, as if daring the world to doubt her. The high priest picked up the drape, the golden edge catching the light. His voice was steady now, steadier than it had been all day. He named her, and in a moment the name left his lips. The courtyard felt smaller, the walls closer, the silence sharper. She denied it once, but her voice cracked. She tried again, and this time the words fell apart before reaching anyone's ears. She confessed in the shade of the jackal god statue. She had taken the statuette, hidden it, and cast suspicion like seeds on the wind. It wasn't greed, she said. Not entirely. It was fear. Fear of losing her place. Fear of the younger ones taking what was hers. The high priest didn't answer. He only bowed his head toward Anubis's image, as if to say, "The god has already spoken." By the next sunrise, the temple had returned to its rhythm. Incense drifted through the colonnade, water jars clinked softly at the well, and the golden statuette of Anubis once again stood on its pedestal, gleaming in the morning light. The high priest stood alone before it, still barefoot from the long night, breathing the quiet air that follows storms. Outside, the first chants of the day rose like a thin silver thread through the courtyard. The guard watched the gate. The servant swept the stones. The priest whispered his prayers. But the old priestess no longer stood among them, and the jackal god's shadow stretched long across the floor, as if reminding them all who had spoken. That night the temple slept. No footsteps on the limestone, no whispering reeds outside the gate, no tremor in the torchlight. The high priest lay on his mat, limbs heavy, the air still warm from the long day. Sleep came to him like a tide, slow and complete. He found himself standing in the sanctuary once more, but this time the walls were brighter than the sun, carved lines gleaming as if drawn from light itself. The golden Anubis shone on its pedestal, and then the shadows around it shifted and took shape. Anubis stepped forward, silent, black and gold, eyes like coals banked in darkness. He looked at the high priest without judgment, only certainty. Then he lifted one finger to his lips in a gesture of silence, and the light folded back into shadow. And the jackal spoke. A Tale of Ancient Egypt.